the reason is because our school as a whole have decided to base our philosophy on three major pillars. Those three pillars are social responsibility, transformation, and the third one is sustainability. And basically, those three pillars will make up our values, our core, curriculum. It's got to basically integrate its way into every single aspect of our school life. We feel as a school that those three elements are probably the three most vital core elements in society and the world as a whole today. They're the three that require the most attention, that have been sort of left untouched for quite a while, particularly now in the last 2 years of COVID. And yeah, we want to work really, really hard. And then with regard to sustainability specifically, we have obviously lost our way quite a bit in the last few years. And we've done quite a bit of good work with regards to transformation and social responsibility. But we found that with sustainability, and we spoke about it quite a bit the first time we met, is that we find that you can put systems in place and you can have recycling and you can do wonderful programs and you can put things in the curriculum. But after a certain amount of time, particularly in environments like schools, they tend to fade away quite quickly. We find it with curriculums that we use. We find it with different learning programs. We find it with any new element that we bring into the school. It has this exciting, amazing, wonderful beginning and start, and it goes on for a little bit, and then suddenly it just falls by the wayside as something new comes in, and it tends to sift away. So they've created this position specifically to not allow that to happen, to make sure that sustainability is sustainable, and to ensure that obviously I will spearhead it with the help of many staff members. But as I said, it'll be a governance position. It's on the board, it's in the management system, and it's a very high position because we take it incredibly seriously, knowing that it's what society needs. So this position was created now in order to avoid the mistakes of the past and to make sure that we as a school are putting that pillar in a very, very strong foundation and making sure that no matter what happens, sustainability continues and only grows and becomes stronger and bigger over time. Okay, so basically what I need to do is quite a large program and portfolio. So the initial part of the program as head of sustainability is to find a way to actually make the school sustainable. So right now we are not really sustainable at all, to be deadly honest. Our recycling has sort of gone by the wayside. So basically, like your waste kit is sort of our best way forward, and looking to find ways to make it accessible to the learners, for them and the boys to understand and to get involved in the curriculum from grade N to grade 7, and to ensure that all our boys are solutionaries of the future. So it's to go beyond just teaching them about the environment and to let them learn. We want them to be changers and solutionaries and boys that can actually go into the future and effectively do kind of what you guys are doing. So, you as an old boy would be a great example for our boys, what we want them to become, to go out there and change the world, not just know about it, but to actually make a difference. Secondly is to look at the buildcom situation. So looking at the building committee and bringing in things like solar power, grey water systems, and look at the building site as a whole to get off the grid, to make sure that we are being as sustainable as possible across the board, and to try obviously save the environment in as many ways as possible. And then obviously to keep our school up to date with trends or current trends or things that are changing in our society. For example, the big one right now is obviously the circular economy, and going from a linear to a circular economy, and making sure that our school, our values, our curriculum, and that all our processes are in line with those new trends and new philosophies. So it's quite a big job. It entails quite a far and broad spectrum from curriculum and education to actual buildings to philosophies, themes, and building that pillar and getting that foundation built in, and it's a very long-term plan. Obviously, at the moment, I'm looking at a sort of 5-year plan with regard to the building situation and getting our school sort of solar powered and grey water systems, etc., and off the grid completely. So that's kind of the role at the moment. Yeah, so the first goal is, so it's kind of a little bit of a repeat, but the first goal, I'll just sort of bullet point it. But goal number one is to obviously change the curriculum, make sure that each grade is accountable for being involved in sustainability, making sure that educators are accountable and making sure that they are putting sustainability into their curriculum in some form or another, be it a lesson outside, whatever it may be. And then obviously that entails me packaging and finding these resources to make sure that the staff are fully equipped to do that. The second thing is obviously to create a sustainable environment where we have our a composting situation and we grow our own vegetables, and we have our plastic recycling bins and our different recycling type of bins that again are accessible, making sure that they've got pictures and the boys can see exactly where these things need to go, that they are all over the school, that they are completely noticeable, and it becomes a second nature way of life situation. So that a little boy in grade N, he's 4 or 5 years old, by the time he's in grade 1 and he's 7 or 8, all of this is just basic instinct. And he just knows that's exactly the way it should be. So over the next 4 to 5 years, we want our boys to just by second nature know exactly how, the recycling system works, why they're recycling, where it goes, which bin it goes into, why they can't put the wrong thing in the wrong bin, and how detrimental that can be to the recycling system, and looking at things like landfills and understanding why the municipal dump is completely unsustainable and it cannot continue because it's gone too far. And then further down the line would be obviously solar power, finding investors and fundraising, etc., for that. And the secondary system would be grey water systems, particularly in the toilets, because we use a lot of water at school. We do have borehole systems with regards to watering and the pool, etc. But there's a lot to be said for the flushing and the amount of wastage within the children's toilets, etc., and the staff toilets. And it would be really great to get a grey water system going through as many of the bathrooms in particular and the toilets in particular going forward. And then obviously building a foundation from which to continue the process and to make sure that it becomes a natural and organic part of school life, that it's not sort of seen as added work or extra work, and getting buy-in from all the various stakeholders. So we want a huge buy-in from the parent body, huge buy-in from the staff, from the boys. We want everybody to be excited and actively and positively involved in the whole situation, and creating just that warm, engaging environment that allows everybody to see that this is the way of the future. That and then obviously the main thing is to create sustainable leaders. So we want to see boys over the next 5 years becoming sustainable leaders and doing things outside of school and beyond just the classroom, and to see if we can make a bit of a difference that way. So I think some of the obvious ones are financially. I think if people start to learn and understand sustainability correctly, they'll know that the initial costs are normally quite high, but your rebates and your money back from solar power, for example, etc., over time, you can save an enormous amount of money. Again, it's also really, really good for the school profile. As I said, we advertise ourselves as having sustainability as one of our 3 major pillars in the school. So it is vitally important for us, and one of the most beneficial elements for us would be the fact that we've got to have our pillars out there showing that we are doing it, that we are transforming society, that we are out there with social outreach and helping people and assisting, that we are being sustainable. So the most important benefit to me is that the society as a whole would look upon wet pups as you say, as a beacon maybe, and go, wow, that school really is making a difference. They really are sustainable. They really are making a change. It can be done. And if we could be a beacon, an example to other schools and other institutions and other businesses, then that's sort of, to me, the biggest benefit for wet pups, because that'll also make the school more attractive, ultimately, and hopefully it'll attract the right kind of children and families and people who want to be involved in a school like wet pups, who want to make a change and make a difference. So, yeah, we actually had a large discussion about this about 2 weeks ago in our management meeting. And I think we have a very different view on that in terms of, yes, teachers can be overwhelmed. There is quite a lot of work done despite what people may think. But we have the feeling that this is not a debatable topic at Wet Pups. This is something that has to be done. It's kind of like transformation. For example, you can't avoid it and just say, well, we'll transform in 5 years' time and we'll figure it out then when we're not busy. Sustainability is happening right now. Whether we like it or not, the world is hurting. And the times are changing, education is changing, and we have to move with it or we will be left behind. So we won't be overly aggressive in our sort of turnover, but what I am going to be setting up is a sort of a hub, a Wet Pups hub, where all staff members will be accountable to put up and present what they are doing in terms of sustainability in their curriculum, right from grade N to grade 7. And as the head of sustainability, I will be providing them with as many resources as possible. I will be available to every grade whenever they need me. I will assist them in setting up curriculum ideas and outings and whatever they need to do. But it will have to happen. So, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, they will need to upload what they've been doing onto this hub or this platform that I set up. They will need to include it in some form or manner. And at the end, we will put it together as one big, large sort of picture of what the school is doing in the curriculum as a whole. And it's a lot easier than people make it out to be. I can tell you now that I teach grade 7 English. So I'm the sort of English specialist as well. And I know that I already include the 3 pillars in my subject very easily. So, with regard to social outreach, I do a set book called The Strollers. And it's about street children in Cape Town and how they live and how they survive, etc. With regards to sustainability, I will actually take the waste audit that you guys did. And in fact, that's my next lesson with them next week. And we will break down the waste audit and we will do an essay on how they felt when they were digging through the bins. What were their feelings about it? What do they think we could change at school? What were the positives and the negatives of the experience? And we'll use it as a reflective exercise. I've actually given it to the math teacher as well, and they're going to use the graphs and the numbers and the percentages and break it down and use it in the maths lesson.
Amazing. That's amazing.
She's a few to do that. So we're going to put those things in quite quickly and quite immediately. And it's just a case of going, you don't have to change, the wheel. It's working and it's spinning and it's turning, but you just need to revolutionize what you are teaching. So if you are teaching graphs, it's very easy to just change, instead of doing graphs on, let's say, for example, they're doing purchasing of sweets and chocolates and cakes, something from the 1980s. They can just say, well, let's do graphs on sustainability. So we'll use sustainability examples, and there are a billion of them out there, and you're teaching the exact same thing. You're not changing your curriculum at all, really. You're just changing the examples that you use, and you're just incorporating sustainability into what's already being done.
Yes.
So there will be a little bit of additional work. There will be an add-on here and there. We do have a wonderful thing called PBL, which is project-based learning, which is constantly evolving, and that involves all sort of the big subjects like history, geography, science, art, etc., technology. They all combine for 2 hours a week with grades 4 to 7, and they use these kind of things all the time, where they deal with sustainability and eco waste and then obviously social outreach as well, and population density and those kind of things. And they'll do huge, big projects on these things. And so it's kind of already there and organically happening. I think the struggle is probably the junior side, the more N to 2, 3 becomes a bit more difficult and tricky, because they are little, they've got their structures, they've got a lot of things set in place that they need to learn. So that is the difficulty, but we've got a plan for it, and we are going to be fairly aggressive in the way in which we break it down into the curriculum. So we're not using any more excuses. Those days are done, and yeah, we're just going to go for it, and it just has to be done. Yeah, so it was obviously a decision by what they call the executive committee and management as a whole. So there is an executive committee which consists of Simon Weaver, the head of school, Candice Buerta, the deputy head of school, Juliana Dreyer, who's our financial manager, and Annie Gorenga, who's our head of communications. And the four of them would determine what roles are needed at the school, what positions are needed for the school to better itself and to excel and to fulfill the need of our 3 pillars. And they obviously saw a gap here. They saw that it was being spread among 1 or 2 staff, and it wasn't really a position. And basically, they kind of saw the writing on the wall toward the end of last year, and then with Simone Becker moving to head of boarding house, her time was taken away, and Mr. Warren Baldwin-Smith was then also involved in it a bit, and he's the head of academics. So the people who were in charge of sustainability, so to speak, were actually given other huge roles that didn't provide time for them to do, and they realized quite swiftly that this had to become a single entity role for one person, because it's actually way too big to be sort of spread among whoever. And in fact, I think the future goal is to actually give me a secondary partner and actually have two heads working together, because of how huge we want to go with, and how big and how broad the spectrum is, because of the fact that it's going to go to building and the whole built environment side of things, as well as the curriculum, as well as the school grounds. It's such a huge, massive project and portfolio that when I initially got given it and interviewed and given the position, they did speak about the fact that at the moment, even sustainability on its own is almost too big for one person at a school. It's such a huge organization. So those are basically the people who deal with that decision. And going forward, if we want to include, maybe it might even be sort of an assistant. So what we have is a thing like a student academy, where we have between 12 and 14 student teachers who are studying to become teachers. And what might happen is one of them will be given a role as assistant to sustainability, and then that person will come on board with me, and in their 3 or 4 years at Red Pups, while they're studying teaching, one of their roles will be assistant to the sustainability HOD, and then they can learn about sustainability as part of their program and their development. And then they can go, when they get a job at a school somewhere else, they could apply for the position of head of sustainability, because they can go on their CV, having been involved.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's a bit harsh to probably say it this way, but for me, it is a no-brainer in terms of, I think anybody who's seen David Attenborough's last documentary, and anybody who knows anything about society and what's going on in the world today, and the oceans and the rainforests, etc., will know that this is not a 5-year plan anymore. This is an immediate 5-day plan where we've got to get moving from minute one. The world is crying out for help, in every single way. It is, we've just gone too far as a planet. We look at it and we keep thinking, the next generation will be the one to do it, and they can take it on and they can fix it and it's not going to work anymore. There will be no next generation if we don't get started right now. And as you say, if you drive on the N7, you go past the Piketberg or whatever, and you look at a landfill, it basically looks like a little mini mountain. That alone should strike fear into the hearts of, everybody around. And any sort of person who does a little bit of investigation or research into the topic of sustainability will be absolutely aghast at what is happening out there and what is happening in the world, and how far behind not just South Africa but the world is in terms of sustainability. And it's a long road for the world, but I think the time is up for people to keep waiting for others to make the difference or make the change. We need to do it now. Every school should be sustainable 100%. And I know a lot of schools are trying. And I think, I'm quite proud of the education system in South Africa. When I talk to staff from other schools, and I have been in connection with other schools, there are a lot of schools who really are trying. And I think it's important for the school community to help each other. So, when we get our systems up and running and we are going, we will do our very best to assist schools that maybe aren't as fortunate as us to help them become sustainable. And, I think as a community, we need to reach out and, again, the social outreach and social responsibilities tied in so heavily to sustainability. The two are almost synonymous with each other. When you're creating sustainability within a society, that is social outreach. It's your social responsibility to help those out there have access to clean water and facilities, etc., and have access to power, but in a natural way and without, destroying the environment. I think petrol alone, if you look at the cost of petrol and vehicles and the fact that, one day there will be no petrol left or no oil left, it's going to run out. What do we do? What are we going to do then? So, the time it's just coming really quickly and fast. And if I think back to the days when I was a kid at school, I think I remember thinking the whole ozone layer was sort of one of the big things, and the CFCs coming out of spray cans. That was sort of the big major thing. And nobody really spoke about too much else. There wasn't really a heck of a lot of communication. And nowadays, it's a very, very different ballgame. Education is completely different in particular. And, like I said, the fact that there are companies like yours out there doing what they're doing is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it shows a really dire need for sustainability. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I would highly recommend any school, particularly, and if they like we did, just do the waste audit and just have a look and have a go, and just start small if you have to. Do what you need to do, but if that's how you need to prove it. But I know the waste audit was a huge eye-opener for us, and it was a massive thing, and it was so incredible for the boys, and the parents absolutely loved it. And
the parents,
we actually I sent a letter out and videos, and I put it in the newsletter, and we got a lot of positive feedback from the fact that we did a waste audit and that the boys were involved. And I've obviously wrote a letter to the parents in advance, telling them that their boys would be digging through rubbish, etc. And all the feedback was unbelievable. They were fully on board and positive. So I think schools will be surprised at the support they receive when they go from the various stakeholders involved. I think any organization would be supported if they go for this route.